All right, well, welcome everyone to nutrient management class. It's not, for some of you, this is a requirement, but you shouldn't feel that way. You should feel that the next 6 weeks are going to be loaded with fun and entertainment. Yes, thank you. It's been a few years since we've done a class in person because of COVID. And prior to COVID, our team used to run around to 3 or 4 different sites on different days and teach classes all over the state. And this year we've decided to try to have the different sites, but teach the class all on the same day. So myself, I'm Heather Darby. I'm with the University of Vermont Extension, and I was saying to Lindsay, now I'm the old extension person. I've been around now for 20 years in about a month. And I used to start the class by saying, I'm the new extension person. So how time flies. Right, Luke?
Right.
Yeah. You remember when I started, because I was a lot like Lauren, going out, going, what do you need something? Can we work together? But we've been teaching this class, or I have been, since 2006. So for quite a long time. And it's one of the best things that I've gotten to do and been able to do for the 20 years that I've been here. I really enjoy it. It's given me the chance to meet and connect with farmers all over the state. And that's probably been the best part of it. And to also share information on managing soils and crops. And now in the last, maybe, I guess it's been 5 or more years, nutrient management plans have become a regulatory requirement. So the class has become more popular because of that. And we've, again, worked with all sizes, types, and diversity of farms to help them write their own nutrient management plan to meet state and federal standards. Okay, so I think the hard thing always for me is when people feel like, well, I gotta go because I've got to do it or else I'm going to get in trouble. But I will say, see, you're laughing because I know that's why you're here. But generally by the end of the class, I don't think, I think I've had a couple only people that have left really feeling like it wasn't worth their time. So you'll gain a lot of great information, and you probably already have by working with the district folks that have been helping you kind of through the process. But like I said, there's more to come. So next week, I'm going to actually head over to Newport and hang out with that class, and then down to Rutland, and then back here, and kind of rotate around and get to visit with everybody. So next week, you guys will get to be up there instead. Okay. So I've been the instructor, not the only one over time, but one of them for a number of years. So I'll put up my same presentation I've been using since 2006. I've tried to update the photos every once in a while. So, because I'm getting older, and when the photos look like I'm still in my 20s. All right, here we go. Let's see here. There's so many things up. I don't know how to get rid of them here. Okay. All right. I think this is the same computer we started with too, Susan. Yeah. That's so funny. All right. Okay. So the schedule, you're going to hopefully make it here every week. It is part of the requirement to show up to class. It's really important because if you don't show up that day, you don't know what your homework will be that week, and then you're falling behind. So it's really important to show up every week. We end on time, try to start on time, and keep our word that we'll get through the information and get you out of here by 2 o'clock. have lunch in between. And again, you're welcome to stay longer if you need to and get help. And you're also welcome to plan to come in earlier and get help as well. So there's plenty of people sitting in our room right now. There's far more of us than there are of the farmers. And that's how we set this class up, so that every single person has assistance if they need it and when they need it.
Hey, Heather. Sorry, this is Sarah from Rutland. We can't see the schedule you're sharing right now. I don't know if any other location is having that trouble or that's on our end, but your share screen on our end seems to have not transitioned to what you're looking at entirely. So
Let
we
me
see
try
your
to share it
PowerPoint.
again.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
No, I'm glad I just said that. Share. Nope.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Most of the work will be completed in a computer program called GoCrop. And that is, as I said, a computer program. It was developed by the University of Vermont, but I will say that we own the program, but we don't own the data, right? So it's just like many of the other things that you would do online or computer programs that you would use. You log in, you enter your information, and you're the only one that has access to it. So I can't just go in there and start snooping around or looking for information or help you if you don't share the password and log in. Okay, so it's your data. Nobody has access to it but you're creating your own account and it's yours. But again, if you need help from one of us and we're not sitting right here, the nice thing about it is you can call us on the phone or do something over Zoom. And that's kind of what's made the class, our ability to host it virtually. And we can help you. Okay, but we can't just go in there. The information doesn't get shared with the state or the federal government. The only thing that gets shared with them at the very end is the hard copy. And it only goes to NRCS if you're enrolled in a federal program and they need to see it. Okay. It doesn't get sent to the state. It doesn't really get sent anywhere except home with you. Now, if most everybody is regulated at this point, if you get inspected, somebody might say to you, well, somebody should say to you, where's your nutrient management plan? Don't look at them and say, well, can't you see it in GoCrop? Because it can't. They have no idea that you did it there or that it's there. So you need to have this hard copy binder on your farm with the plan in it if you get inspected, because they will ask for it and they will look through it. Now, if for some reason Lauren held on to it for you for safekeeping, you need to get it from her. And I'm only saying that because sometimes they end up in our office and then they tell the state that it's at UVM extension. But you need to have it. Okay. So by the end of the class or shortly after, we need to make sure you have that hard copy. Now, of course, you can get into GoCrop and, hopefully you will continue to use it and update your plan because that is a requirement. And your information is always there, but you still have to have a hard copy. Okay, so we're going to get into using GoCrop a lot, a little bit today, but then throughout the whole class. So I listed here additional help sessions as needed. And as I already said, there are a lot of us to help you. So if you're falling behind, you need to reach out. We're trying to keep tabs on everybody pretty closely to make sure that by the end of that 6 weeks, you're walking out of here with that plan. That's our goal, so that we don't have to keep trying to follow up with you, right? And you don't have to keep trying to get it done. There's lots of resources as well online. We video all of these classes. So if you do miss it, you can still see us by video online to get caught up. And we've taped them for the last few years. So if you're really looking for something to do on the weekends because you got nothing going on, you can go back and watch 2022, 2021, just binge watch. We should get ourselves on Netflix. I'm thinking that we could be the next binge watched program. We'll have to work on that. We might need to do something more exciting, but we could throw in something. All right, so let's move on here. Hopefully this will move. It's a computer so old. Do you see that, Lindsay? It did move this time. Okay, so this is the website, which you can't see from where I can't see. I don't have my glasses on, but we do have a website. Maybe we can pop that in the chat for folks. But if you need access to it, we'll make sure you get the website. Okay, so everybody's received their binder. Sure's fancier than mine. Mine's white. No, come on, you guys. You didn't fancy it up. We used to fancy it up. We'll bring in stickers. Oh, yeah, okay. We need stickers. Stickers that you wrote with a pen. Oh, yeah. Now, back in the old days with the old district people we used to work with, they used to put a picture of the farm on the front with the name. It was very customized, even had, yeah.
I did.
So everybody should have a binder that looks exactly the same at this point. No, I'm just kidding, giving you a hard time. And when we're done, this binder will become your nutrient management plan. Okay, so everything in there should stay in there. Don't start making decisions about needing something to start your fire with and seeing this sitting next, sitting somewhere and say, oh, there's some paper in there. Please keep what's in there unless somebody from the class says, okay, we don't need this anymore. We can take it out, right? So there's a lot of extra reading in there. If you're interested, some really interesting articles on manure management and how to sample your manure pit and all those kinds of things. But what's in there, we're following a checklist, right? So we have to make sure that all the parts of the NMP that are required are in the binder at the end. So again, just leave what's in there. Now the binder has tabs. Each tab will be populated with information. Some of it you may already have, like soil tests, manure production information, a manure test, etc., maps. Okay, all that stuff will be provided to you ahead of class, or should have been, or will be, and we'll start putting that stuff right in the binder. So we'd appreciate it if you didn't necessarily move the tabs around. We want it to be yours, but keeping it in this order for now is helpful to us as we begin to build the plan. Okay. Everything that will go in the plan is listed on the purple page in the binder, so you can see all the work you'll be doing. Well, maybe you don't want to look at it. It is first class. You don't want to psych yourself out, right, Luke?
Right.
Yeah, okay. We'll wait. We'll go over that later. All right. Okay, so before class, again, you should have your soil tests, manure tests, hopefully, a set of maps, the soil fact sheets, which you do not have. We've made a decision not to clutter your binders with those things, but we will be using the information from them. RUSLE2 numbers, which are numbers predicting the amount of soil loss on your farm, and then these other important documents I talked about. Okay, the additional things that will go in there will come out of GoCrop. Once we populate the program, we'll print off the reports and they'll go right in here. All right. Okay. Now, again, 6 weeks. You show up. Try to be on time. We'll have generally kind of a lecture in the morning to talk about what we're going to cover during that week. Okay, so we might talk about how to read a soil test, how to calculate the amount of nutrients coming from your manure, how we estimate phosphorus loss from your farm. So we'll go through all those things in a lecture format, and then you'll learn what information you're going to be putting into GoCrop for the week, We will spend some time showing you how to do that, where it goes. We'll have time at the end of the class to work on your homework, get you as far as we can before you leave. Make sure you know what you're doing, but it is your responsibility to complete the homework that was assigned before the next class. So when was the last time you had homework? Yeah, okay. Yeah, a while ago. Welcome back. Yeah. Okay, but it is important to get that work done. And again, just, if you didn't have time, if you're like everybody else, you wait the day before, the hour before, or you don't do it and you're like, I better get in there early this week so I can get this done. Okay, most of you are small farms. It's not going to take too much of your time to get the homework done, especially if you're doing it every week. Any questions? Just summarize. Come to class every week. It's in the same spot, or get online. Bring your binder. Don't leave it at home. We need it. There's information that we need. Okay. Come to class, bring your binder, do your homework. I think that's it. We'll try to have fun. Oh,
Hi, Heather. It's Ken.
hey, Kent, how you doing?
Good, you?
Good.
I thought this was like a class to get some points. So am I thinking wrong or?
Kent, you should come anyway.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We should do the 6 weeks?
I think Lindsay is doing some custom manure credits. Yeah, she'll you want to just.
Yeah. Hey, Kent, this is Lindsay.
Hi.
Sorry, we had an echo here for a minute. Maybe we still have it. Maybe I'll pop over.
Oh, I had you.
Hey, Kent.
Kent, you're holding up our class, by the way.
I'm sorry.
I was just
Well-
thinking about
I'm
that,
kidding.
your question. Yeah, so it's throughout the class, like this is focused for nutrient management planning, but Heather will get into some of the pieces that do relate to some manure application in terms of like how to apply nutrients, when to apply nutrients, and that piece. Either way, if this is not covering the topics that you thought that we would cover, you're still going to get your credit for today.
Okay, perfect.
Does that sound good? Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Just so you know, I'm watching you. And if you try to leave.
It's Willie I'm worried about.
Oh, right. Anyway, just kidding. Okay.
All right, thanks.
Yep. Okay. So I think I covered all of the important things to cover at this moment. And now Lindsay, you're coming back up. Lindsay's going to talk a bit about GoCrop. And I think has everybody in here created an account? Oh, okay. Well then, there we go. Yeah.
All right. And also just to follow up on manure certification, if you do have a question, please feel free to reach out. If there's a particular topic you want covered or you're just wondering about something, feel free to email me. All right, so I'm gonna change the share screen here for a minute to go here. So for folks who have not created a GoCrop account, what you're going to do for that is not make that happen. So you'll go to www.gocrop.com, right? And this should be the screen that you see. So when you're first creating your account, you'll click this sign up button. After that, you'll sign in, but right now we're signing up. So if you have not created a GoCrop account, click sign up. Okay.
You want everybody going?
Yeah, I want you to do this right now.
No,
You can.
log into any.
Yeah.
All right.
So
you should be able to log into Yeah. Yes, it's that right there. The password? Yeah. Look at the top. Oh, I see. Shift.
Are we inventing our own password for this?
Yes, this is your GoCrop account. It's unique and individual to you. So the question was, am I creating my own password? The answer is yes. Please, when you're creating your account, use this orange sheet and write your email account that you're using to log in and also your password.
Again, this is only for you. And then
Use the email address you have access to. Use a password you'll remember.
I'm making it really easy to.
If you do not have an email account, please reach out to support staff next to you to help you create an email account for the purpose of GoCrop. Again, please use an email account that you regularly use or create one for this purpose and create a password that you'll remember.
I guess if you just type it in again, you can see if it's
All right.
And then once you have that set, you'll type in your name, your phone number, business name.
That password's not working?
No, the computer.
We have an extra one if that would be.
All right. So how do
Scroll down. Right to your password up in here so you don't forget. And give that away. Whatever password.
Oh, but you just have to plug it in. to make it work.
okay, so now.
Can I take that?
These little nine. Then you can type in your name and phone number. You know, password.
That was a dummy account I was doing.
So.
Recording in progress.
Many years ago when I was looking at the
We can help you as well. Too. Okay.
I'm gonna apologize.
No, I
stayed
should-
away from computers for a long
No,
time.
the max make it extra.
Oh,
Oh,
this is okay, yeah, that's, I'm gonna blame it on that.
Yeah. Different buttons. First back. And if it doesn't work, you can reset the password. Either way.
Just gonna say, what's my cell phone number?
For folks in other locations, we have people still working through their profiles. I'm going to wait until people are caught up for that until we get into the next part of this.
Do I need to have a business name? Yes.
You're fine.
I don't have a fun name.
But that's fine. Oh, I guess you do. You can just.
My name is.
Your name. Yeah, I see the asterisks. So now you're saying, well, so that's where you'll use your email. And then choose your password. Which might be farm type. I think it's just a. And then click sign in. And so now you can log in.
Now, see, look at this, I'm ready to go.
And then you log in. And then you have to go to your email and confirm it.
All right, so for folks who are on other locations with us, right now our room is at the point where they're getting the block to access their GoCrop account. And so you'll need to go into your email account to confirm that. So in one of the examples I have here, in the Gmail account, you can see that I don't have a confirmation email account in my inbox. I do not have one in my spam. I do not have one in my trash. It likes to hide out in all mail. And you'll see it there with confirmation instructions there. So it might be in your spam, but for Gmail, it doesn't go there. So look in all the possible inboxes or ways that email can come to your account. You'll open up the email and you'll click this link, confirm my account.
No idea. Just no idea.
So once you confirm your account, you should be able to sign in using the email you use to create your profile and the password you use to create your profile.
I'll try it once.
How you doing, John? Yeah.
I'm getting there now.
Yeah.
This is what I always wanted to, my phone is telling me.
Once you have signed in through your email and your password, if you're working on your personal computer, you can click remember me so you don't have to do that again. If you're working on one of our laptops, you might not want to do that. I'm going to leave remember me for our purposes on this laptop, but feel free to uncheck that for you. And then click log in. In your new account, you will see that this is blank and it will say you have no farms started. And Heather will help walk through how to create your farm. But at this point, we just want to make sure that you've logged into your account. If you have any questions, please feel free to either send them in the chat or unmute and let us know. But I think we're all set in this room. Maybe folks can put in the chat if they're all okay at their different locations. If you're ready to move on from this excursion. Are you ready?
Do you want to ask everybody?
I did, and I not seen anybody in chat or on video saying that they're not ready.
Work on it for a few minutes. I think. Yeah, they are keeping on the street. They're not.
This is acres managed. I believe it would be crop. I don't think you.
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
No.
Yeah. Right, what's down, no new farms? And so then, John, you'll have to log in through, to confirm your email. Are you able to do that off of your phone? Do you have your email connected to your phone?
I do.
Okay, so it should go to maybe your spam account. But, or if you are able to go to all mail, if it's email.
And people still loading, so it may not have sent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people are. Emphasize receiving our CPD.
Yeah, I feel,
I think it's everybody.
all right, so I think we'll go on to the next step and we'll have you start your new farm. So to do that, you'll click this orange button in the upper right-hand corner. And you'll notice you'll have to input a lot of the same information, right? So you just entered information to create your account. Now you're entering information for your farm. You can imagine a scenario where someone might be working on multiple farms with different types of information. So this is information for your farm. So your name, email, phone number, the farm address. And then once you're done with that, you can click Save Farm.
This is why. This is why.
I don't know.
I can write faster. I can write faster.
I can also try to do it online too. If need be.
Yeah, okay, so if you get to that point, just so save us a headache later, So what? After you.
No, I didn't hit save farm yet. That was checked.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so I'm just gonna throw some information in here quick. So you can see what it'll look like. We've already created an account, but it looks like once you fill out this information, that's not showing up on mine for whatever reason. So live demo, we have a bug here, but on your profile form, you might have a little box that shows up that says free trial. I'd like you to unclick that because what I'd like us to do today is enter the coupon code that will give you access to GoCrop for a year through your RCPP code. So unclick free trial. Not if you have the code, I believe now. So once you get to the point where you're ready to put in your code, what that form will look like. And here's another way to access it. Once you have your farm started, you'll go to edit license. And from here, you can choose your plan. You'll choose the level 1. You'll click automatically renew, no, and then you'll put in your coupon code. If you are updating, that coupon code is either going to be small farm 50 or certified 100, but most of you are here creating a new plan. And so you will use the 2023 RCPP coupon code to pay for your license.
It's used up and cannot be applied. 2023
Luke over there trying to get as many accounts.
If you use this coupon code, you do not need to enter any credit card information.
Maybe you can try typing. Yeah, it's every single county.
No, just run it back to the now. Yes.
What if you try?
Show every county. Oh.
Oh.
That's because we have it set up so that people from other agencies go across.
Okay, so.
Unchecked.
Yeah.
Yep.
Save our-
Yep. Split down. Don't worry. No, yeah. And the coupon code is 2023 RCP.
20.
Yes. And then capital RCPP.
Is it capital?
Yeah, so you can
At
check capital
Gmail.
RCPP. And then for the.
So
you choose a plan. You do level 1.
You're gonna really remember your password.
Yeah, okay.
You'll notice that there are some add-ons here, some for grazing, another for analysis tools. I would recommend at this moment not to add them. You can always add them later at no cost. But right now, for the purposes of creating your first nutrient management plan, let's just stick with advanced crops and the Vermont Nutrient Management Plan. Pre-selected pieces or add-ons for you. Like I said, we can always go back and we can add the others, and we're happy to help walk you through what those others look like, or how GoCrop integrates those into your plan and how they work. But for now, let's just stick with those 2 pre-selected add-ons.
Must not have matched
I always have questions.
down there.
I tried to stay under the radar for so long.
You guys are all set?
Wait, there's the code.
Oh. Okay. If this code is not working for you, we had a lot of people use it. So the new code that will give you access using to GoCrop is 2023 RCPP 2. And RCPP is capitalized like you see on the screen there. And I've seen this in the chat, but no, you do not need any credit card information if you're using the RCPP code. Once you have all that information in there, you've chosen your farm, you've got your plan, you've got your add-ons. I'd also click not to automatically renew. Again, you can change this if you accidentally click yes to automatically renew, but what this means is that next year when your subscription runs out, your credit card might automatically get charged. For those using the coupon code, that won't happen because you didn't enter any credit card information. But I think it's still good practice to click no for automatically renew. If you do go into your GoCrop account and your subscription is no longer active, the first indicator is that when you log in, instead of saying work with this farm, it will say review this farm. You will be able to download your data. You will be able to look at your plan, but you will, if you do not have an active subscription, you will not be able to update your plan. You will not be able to enter records, and you will not be able to generate or print reports. Okay. As we're waiting, I just want to double check that everybody has written down their login name and password. And if you feel comfortable, please share it with staff so that we have a record of it in the event that you accidentally do use this to start your fire. We can help you get back into it.
I don't
And
think,
then your emails just.
the firewood. Yeah. I mean, yep. I don't think there's anything top secret. Maybe somebody can give me a pointer on how to do things better.
Heather, do you want to start with presentation, or do you want me to do a quick overview of the dashboard? Okay.
Yes.
So let's just, now that you've confirmed you got your license up and running, this is what it'll look like when you, oops, log in again.
Yeah.
You're gonna click the sign in. And if you click remember me like I did, you're gonna automatically be pumped in there. If you didn't, you'll be prompted to re-log in or re-enter your login information. And then from here, you can see we already have this side menu here where we can go to your farms, which will have this list here. You can access your account information at any time once you log in, and you can also log out. But most often when you're at this page, you'll go to work with this farm. And here now you see that we have another, with some additions to our side menus. We have this farm, it's not a list of farms, but this farm. Now we have a fields side menu, reporting tools, and add records. And then we can also go back to our all farms, our account, or a log out. Each one of these has sub tabs that we will get into throughout the course of the program. So right now we're in our farm, and our sub tabs are dashboard, nutrient sources, and equipment. We'll get to nutrient sources and equipment later today. And it's part of your homework if you don't finish it today in class, I believe. But here's your dashboard, right? So you've got your farm details. The pin is dropped where you put the address in your map. And you can always change this by clicking edit farm. You were just at the license form, so you might be pretty familiar with that, but you can see on my account and maybe on yours that you have a full year subscription with that RCPP2 code. And you can see how long it's active, what level you have, what your add-ons on, who your licensee is. And then we have our record years. So at this point, you might only have 2023, is that correct?
Yes.
So just to help us out, I think it would be helpful at this point to add the 2022 year. Just in case you want to put any records in there or show anything past that. So in order to do that, you'll click this orange button here, the plus button, and it'll automatically say 2024. You don't want that. You're going to put in 2022. What this does is it allows GoCrop to associate data with the year 2022 for any records or plan.
So maybe.
If you want to keep us adding this, you can go back.
Yep. Yeah. And so Heather was just saying to you, like, maybe you have some soil tests from a previous year. In order to enter those into GoCrop, you'll also need to enter that year as a record year. So to do that, again, you'll press the orange button and you'll put in the year. You go again, it'll prompt you to do 2024, but you want to put in 2021. There are a lot of places in GoCrop where it'll say, when was this established? So maybe you have a field and it'll say, how long have you owned it? You can put in 1970. That's fine. GoCrop's not going to use that anywhere. Or it might ask you, how long have you had this pit? And you might say, well, since 2000. You'll put that in there. It won't go anywhere. But we do need to open up record years for anything that has to do with your plan or your record. So any soil test, manure test, we need to create a year for those to be housed and stored in GoCrop. So at this point, going forward to create our plans, we should at least have the years 2021, 2022, and 2023 ready to go on your dashboard. And I'm going to do a little foreshadowing here just to kind of complete your familiarization with the dashboard before I hand it back off to Heather. We have this handy mechanism in GoCrop to import soils data. There's a couple steps to make that happen, and we will walk through that, but not at this class. So that's nice because that saves manual entry, not only of your soil test, but also GoCrop now has a way to automatically generate nutrient recommendations. So that's pretty helpful. At any time, you can always download your data in a CSV file. Even if you don't have your subscription active, this is always your data, and you can always download it and have access to it. It's not always in the most intuitive way. There can be some steps to take in order to make it more useful to you, but all your data is there. And then you have a list of your users. So let's say that you have an employee that you want to have access to this account to enter in records. They can create their own GoCrop account and like have a free trial, and you can invite them as a user and they're covered in your license. Most farmers we work with, if they have an employee or staff that they work with, they just share their login name and password, and that's fine too, but this is another way that you are able to use GoCrop. And I think we'll stop there. If there's any questions. Let's see if there's a. Do we have any chat questions? Sorry, I don't know where that went here. Okay.
Newsletter asked if the credit card information is necessary.
Nope, credit card information is not necessary if you're using the RCPP code.
That's okay, that's.
Are we ready? Can you guys give us a thumbs up or a chat that you're ready to go on? Ready to stop seeing this? See more presentation. Thank you. All right, so are you going to go back into presentation, Heather?
Yeah.
All right. This bar is funny.
I know.
How do I get it to stop sharing the screen? Is it this?
I don't know.
Oh,
There you
there
go.
we go. So now, and you want, or this?
No.
No, you want this.
I don't know what I want. I'll let you
Thank you,
decide.
Garrett, take your folder up.
Oh.
You may need that. Okay. Thank you, Lindsay. It's great. All right. So what's the web address for GoCrop? That's your first quiz. Are you gonna get back there? Who said it? I can't hear you. There we go. It's pretty simple. GoCrop.com. You don't even have to type in the www. You can just put in GoCrop.com. Okay. Let's get back to where we were. I have these items sitting out here. I forgot to mention these before, but we do have a course manual. It's in your binder. It's called Digging In, and it goes through the class pretty much exactly how it's taught. So again, if you want some light reading in the evening hours, feel free to dive in.
Hey Heather, we can't see the slides right again.
What do you see? What do you see?
We see like your PowerPoint, but in the mode where you're still sort of scrolling through your slides, not
Oh,
full,
weird.
not full screen.
I wonder if we,
In, like,
well, it could just
presentation.
be the connection, I guess.
I think
Yeah, sorry.
I was trying to do it so you're just sharing the screen, but if you have it, share it, what's up on your computer.
So- You just click that first one, whatever you see is what they'll see. So display settings.
Yeah.
I know, but there should be something that, there we go. Duplicate slide. Yes.
All right.
Yeah. I know, but it should.
I think you were in the right place, but you should duplicate instead of switch, and then it'll just show the presentation on both. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right. So the class textbook. Yeah, it's not really a textbook, it's photocopy, but it's a lot of great information to teach you all the things we're learning in class, and you can read through that if you'd like. There's also the nutrient recommendations for field crops. So all these are in the binder. The nutrient recommendations for field crops is what we use to make nutrient recommendations. And it goes through lots of detail about that. So it doesn't just tell you how much nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium you need. It goes into detail about how it's calculated, why, what it does. Goes through how lime recommended, it should be in the appendix, I believe, or the, yeah, I think it's back, or reference material. It's kind of way in the back. Okay, so again, actually, this is a really interesting read. If you want to know a lot more about soil tests, or just to better understand what you've learned in class. Okay, and then there's also this beautiful color illustrative booklet on the required agricultural practices. And as it states, it's required. This is one of the requirements, but there are others. And through the class, you will meet many of those requirements if you implement your plan. But this also covers other required water quality practices, again, that are law and a requirement of your farm to implement. And the thing I really like about this book is it's very simple. There's great photos about buffers and setbacks, and how close can you spread manure to a private versus a public well? How big are the buffers that are required on your farm? So it's really a great document. And again, it will cover some items that we don't really cover here in class. Okay, so it's if you don't even know what I'm talking about when I say required agricultural practices or RAPs, suggest that you look through the book carefully and read it, because again, they are the water quality laws of the state of Vermont for agricultural producers. Okay. All right. So nutrient management is one of the requirements for all farms actually in the state, regardless of your size or your type. The level or the, I guess, intricate detail that you must track and keep track of is dependent on the size of your farm. So if you're a certified small farm, you are required, or larger, you are required by the state of Vermont to have a nutrient management plan that meets the NRCS 590 standard. So there is a very specific set of requirements to be able to meet those regulatory laws. And that's what we do here. Okay, so if you're going through the class, by the time we're done, you'll meet those requirements. So we are following the 590 standard. That's also in your binder, and I'll kind of point that out in a little bit in case you want to read up on it. But we are following that, so you don't need to, unless you want to check in on us every once in a while, make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be. Otherwise, you'll have to take my word for it. That's what we're following. So what is nutrient management? And the reason I'm sitting down is because I have to, so everybody can hear me. Nutrient, not because I'm lazy and I don't want to walk around. You kind of thought that, yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's not because I'm old, Luke. That's not why I'm sitting down. Okay, so with nutrient management, our goal is to really combine the on-farm nutrient sources. So that would be manure, legumes, crops that you're rotating, maybe compost that you're making. So to combine those nutrient sources with commercial fertilizers, okay, which are an input cost onto your farm to meet the crop needs and to minimize any nutrient losses. So we're not just thinking about the crops. The crops are our top priority. We want to make sure they're productive and nutritious, but we also have to make sure that how we're managing our fields will limit any impact on the environment. And that really is the overall goal. So we want to produce good crops and protect the environment, and we can do that together. Okay. So again, we really want to focus on what you have on your farm. And we don't want to be bringing on inputs unless we have to. Okay. And really, ultimately, that is up to you. Some farms will realize they don't really have enough on-farm nutrients and that they could use more nutrients on their farm. At that point, it's your, it's your personal decision whether you bring those on or not. If you choose to do that, we have to make sure again that we're not overdoing it essentially, and that when we're applying any fertilizers or manure, that we're not doing that in excess or with potential harm to the environment. That's pretty much it. And it's going to take us 6 weeks to get through that. Mostly because I'm going to spend 50 minutes talking about it right now about why we're doing this. It is complicated. It can get overwhelming for people. There is a ton of information. I went to college for almost 10 years to be able to sit up here and tell you how to do it, but you're doing the work. And I probably took 15 plus courses on soils and agronomy to try to understand it myself. And I am cramming that down your throats in 6 weeks. So it's a lot. It's a lot to take in and to understand. And, there isn't an expectation that you're just going to get it, but you're farmers. You have the years of farming experience, you understand your land, but no, it's like a couple months. You understand your land and how it performs better than anyone else. Things that, I can take out of a book and tell you, you can tell me right back that that'll never work on your farm. And that may very well be true. Okay. So really this is about combining scientific information with practical information to try to get that end goal, right? So I respect everything that you know, and I value it. And I think it's the combination of both to make a good plan and to do what we're trying to do. Okay. So don't ever feel that what you know is not important here, because sometimes that's what we need to hear to help make a better recommendation for you. So we're not just talking about our soil tests. There's so many things that we need to look at. This is just a short list. See, it's the ABCs, and yes, I'm from Alberg. If anybody knows where that is, I do know the alphabet goes above I. But, we only have so much time this morning. And really this sort of list is to show you that managing soil is complex. And we're not just going to be looking at soil tests and saying, yep, put on 50 pounds of nitrogen. We have to look at a lot of different pieces of the soil and the crops. And really focus on building up the health of the soil so that the soil can also work for you, right? So it's not just about putting on fertilizer to get the crop outputs. It's taking care of all of the soil to get the crop outputs that we want. Okay, so why is this important? And public relations, yeah, the because you have to part I left off of there, but we'll start with the most important piece for a lot of people is economics, trying to get the most from what you have at the least cost, and the more you understand about, the value of the manure that you have and what the crops actually need and which fields need more fertilizer than another, will help you take the resources that you have and invest them in the right place and hopefully get what you want out of that. Okay. Environmental concerns, public relations, those are all also really good reasons to be sitting here. And then of course, last is that regulatory requirement. So, if you've bought fertilizer lately, it's expensive, and it's more expensive now than it has been. I don't want to say ever, but it's definitely expensive. And, it's always a good time to sort of go back and look at what you're doing if you want to reduce fertilizer costs. So again, there's fertilizer on our farm, and we have to take advantage of that to the best of our ability. And again, legumes, alfalfa, red clover, white clover, bird's foot trefoil, those crops produce nitrogen, with a bacteria. Okay. They don't do it on their own, but it is one of the only nutrients we can actually produce and grow. And that's pretty powerful, especially if you're a livestock producer. And even if you're not, the ability to grow your own nitrogen is a wonderful thing. And taking advantage of that is really important because it's expensive to fertilize crops that don't do that, whether it's grass or it's corn. Corn is a grass, if anybody's saying that under their breath, but corn, grasses, they take a ton of nitrogen. Okay, so being able to supply some of that with a legume can save you money. And then we have the nitrogen and other nutrients that are in manure. What's coming out of that cow or pig or whatever kind of livestock you have was something that animal didn't utilize that you fed it, right? So if you're feeding grain, and some of you aren't, nutrients that are not making their way into, meat, milk, eggs, whatever, come out the back end. And so you know, feeding grain has a cost, but you also get a fertility value from that, right? So utilizing that manure and understanding what's in it, and again, taking advantage of that can save you some money. So why should you invest in your land? I hope I don't need to tell you why, but you know, you are trying to grow something. I think most people here are trying to grow grass or some kind of crop for their livestock. Not everybody, but the majority. And fields that are properly fertilized and taken care of with healthy soils, they produce more yield. And not only do they produce more yield, it's better quality. It's going to be able to supply more of the nutrition to the animal so that hopefully you can buy a little less grain. All right. So this is some data from a colleague of ours, Cindy Daly, who is the farm manager, actually a farm out in California, but she did this really interesting, wasn't even a study. She just decided to fertilize the fields. And so this is at a university where they weren't taking that great care of the pastures. I don't know if you remember this story, Sarah, but and so she took over managing the farm and she said, hey, you know, we got to fertilize this. There was this, I think, thought process that a lot of us have that, you know, sometimes the manure is enough. They eat the grass, they poop on the field, and they're just returning it. So why do I need to fertilize? Well, you know, to some extent that's true, but if you're shipping milk off the farm or you're shipping beef, there's nutrients leaving with that. So she just took some soil tests and went out and followed the soil tests and amended some of the fields and some she didn't. And, you know, lo and behold, she got better feed off those fields. So this is just showing the difference between, you know, meeting the fertility needs of those crops and not. And then, you know, she also got higher milk production. Now, making milk from forage can be done. Making milk from only forage can be done, but it has to be high quality to do that, right? So, you know, she basically showed, well, if I take care of my crops and I feed the soil, then I'll get more of and better feed and more output. Okay, so the investment in your land should pay dividends. When we are harvesting feed, and this happens a lot around Vermont and other places, you know, it's easy sometimes just to harvest. So on the bottom is how much nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in pounds, okay, per ton are removed. So if you're harvesting a ton of dry matter, and I would say if you're taking first cut, usually that's, you kind of get a ton of dry matter. First cut's the hot, you know, your highest yielding crop. Okay, so you get a ton of dry matter off of an acre and you're removing 50 pounds in that. This is just grass, okay? 17 pounds of phosphorus and 50 pounds of potassium. Seems like you could easily put that back in the form of manure, right? So up above is a rough estimate of what you get from your manure. Okay. So you can replace some of it, but do you just want to get 1 ton of dry matter per acre off that field? God, I hope not. No, we always say the average in Vermont is between 3 and 4 tons. So multiply 50 times 3. It's 150 pounds of nitrogen. That's a lot of nitrogen. That's more than most corn crops in the state of Vermont need for fertility. Nobody thinks about that. Everybody thinks that, oh, that corn, oh, it takes so much fertilizer to grow that corn. Well, if you want to produce grass, good quality and lots of it, it takes more nitrogen than corn. And it takes more potassium than corn. So 4 tons, which is essentially like 1 ton of dry matter over 4 cuts. we're looking at a couple 100 pounds of nitrogen, right? So if we want to maximize the yields per acre, you're going out there and you're mowing it all, costs the same whether there's 4 tons or 1, you know, then we want to make sure that you recognize as a producer what it takes to make that kind of feed. And it's not doing nothing. Okay, because over time, it's just pulling nutrients away. And people will call and say, why is all this bed straw in my field? The only thing that grows in my field is bed straw or whatever it might be. Or, you know, I used to get, I used to sell feed. I don't even have enough to feed my cows anymore. Okay. Now, why is that? Well, it could be the climate, it could be a lot of things, but it may be because you just haven't given enough back. Right? Okay. So thinking about adding diversity into those grass fields, we'll talk about this a lot, is getting those legumes in there can be really helpful to reduce some fertilizer inputs, right? Purchased inputs, and improving yields. Okay. So most people don't have enough manure, contrary to popular belief in the state of Vermont, to fertilize all their fields enough. And so we've been really trying to encourage people to take advantage of the power of a legume. So here you can see a dry matter yields, and this is one cut. So we had grass fertilized with urea, basically at that 50-pound rate. And then we had grass mixed with red clover. And then we had grass alone. It's real numbers, you know? So it does make a difference and it does save money. So those are the kind of things we're going to be digging into. Here's just over the whole season, kind of what we saw. So basically about a ton difference, which is a lot. Okay. To get 4 tons of grass, 200 pounds of nitrogen, or 8 pounds of red clover. What does 8 pounds of red clover cost? Maximum of $16. What does 200 pounds of nitrogen cost? Okay. Anyway, I don't need to do the math. All right. So that's what we're going to be trying to work on with everybody. Environmental concerns. We are clearly concerned with surface water contamination in Vermont, at least up here. Well, actually, in all the sites right now, people are on Lake Champlain for the most part. We know that there's environmental concern and issues that surround the lake, which have, for a lot of reason, been the driving force for you to be sitting in this class today, taking this class. We want to keep the nutrients. As you can see, there's a cost and a value. We want to keep them on your fields, not in the water. Okay. You're right. I mean, you paid for it. You buying, you know, what's nitrogen fertilizer? $700 a ton. Okay. Do you want to lose that into the lake or into the air or into the whatever? No, God, no. Okay. So how are we going to keep it on your farm, on the land with the crops that need it, not going into the water or into the air? I think, you know, we talk about water quality a lot. We've done so much to improve what we do on our farms. Absolutely. Now that I've been here 20 years, I can say that with a lot of confidence. Things have changed considerably and, you know, generally for the best. People are working hard. They understand. Now, you know, a lot of our focus is moving to air, to greenhouse gas emissions. And much of the emissions that we are trying to manage in this class are nitrous oxide coming from nitrogen fertilizers. They're losses, period. I don't care where it's going. If it's not going up into the crop, it's gone. So we want to keep as much as we can to fertilize our crops. We have been working more towards managing nutrients coming out of tiles as well. There's been an increase in implementing tile across the state of Vermont. And, I'll say for good reason. Climate's changed. People are seeing more value in trying to manage water on their farms. And, with that though, we have to think about, if water's coming out of a tile draining through a farm, what's in it? And we have to do our best to manage those losses too. And that's a new conversation, not something that we even thought about when I started here. But again, going through this class, implementing the practices we're talking about are going to help you minimize losses, period. Is this working out? I guess nobody's yelling at me. So public perception. The thing that I love about Vermont are close-knit communities. Sometimes they're too close, everybody's got a say in what everybody else is doing. And I grew up in a small town here and I'm still there, and everybody knows what you're doing, whether they know what you're doing or not, right? They think they know what you're doing. And that it's great. But things have changed. Our communities are now less agriculturally based, less knowledge about agriculture, even in the most rural parts of Vermont, and much more scrutiny around, what farmers are doing, whether they're doing something wrong or not. Sometimes even when they're doing the best things that we've told them to do, people are still calling and reporting them because people don't know, they don't understand. And they make assumptions, not always good ones. And public perception is a real driver also to the regulations that we have now. So it should not be taken with a grain of salt. And making sure that you can communicate about what you're doing for the environment is actually a really important outcome of this class. And I've seen it time and time again when farmers leave here and somebody says to them, you're just slathering that manure on that field, they can say, well, no, here's my 75-page, actually like 200 pages of management, that I have developed on my own. And I will show you, this is the rate that I use, and this is why I'm using it. And having that knowledge to talk to people, whether you like talking to people or not, clearly I do, but it's a powerful tool and one that we need as farmers today to be able to educate so that the situation isn't as one-sided. All right, what do we got next? Oh, there, regulation, I put that last. Okay. The RAPs I mentioned, these are not new anymore. They used to be new. They were, when were the RAPs put into place? 2015. Okay. Yeah, it's been a while now. So you should be familiar with those, or at least have heard of them. And they are required by all agricultural operations in the state, regardless of type or size. Okay. And then, like I said, some farms, so certified small farms, medium farms, large farms, they're required to have this type of nutrient management plan. And it just provides a different level of detail management to avoid losses. There's that fancy picture again. Okay, and as I mentioned, we're following the 590 standard. It's been up, it hasn't been updated, not this year, right? Still from last year. Where is that in here? It is also a good read. I think everything's a good read, but it's in the references. Okay, so there it is. There's a picture of it here so you can see. But it again goes through in detail how to manage nutrients on your farm. and that's what we're gonna go through. Here's some of a few of the details. I don't really want to spend a lot of time on this. Everybody should know this by now. But to protect surface water, the state of Vermont requires by law a 25-foot perennial vegetated buffer along surface water. If you have a hayfield there, you still have to have a 25-foot buffer, okay? Which means there's no manure application in that 25 feet. You have to have 10 feet along a ditch on both sides. I think the 100-foot that's still in place. Do you guys know? I know they've changed a couple of things. Okay. All right, and then groundwater protection, keeping away from public and private wells, which is obviously in your best interest to not be spreading manure close to somebody's well, okay? Or your own, yes. I mean, yes.
Was the surface water, the wetland kind of surface water?
That I don't know. Yeah, that I don't know. Okay, so you have to have a new soil test. And then after you have new soil tests to create a plan, you can be on a every 3-year regimen, meaning you need new soil tests every 3 years. That actually is a law for every farmer in the state, not just some of you. Okay. We will also need crop information. We're going to need the soil type for each field, the erosion loss numbers, yield goals. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by lunch. Nutrient information. So how much manure are you actually producing on your farm? And what kind of nutrients are in it? You'll need a whole farm nutrient budget, which means how many crops or how many nutrients does your crop remove versus nutrients you're producing in manure. We're going to do some risk assessments, essentially looking at the risk of losing phosphorus from your fields. That's our number one concern, mostly using the phosphorus index. And then we also use the nitrogen leaching index, especially if you're on really sandy soils or in certain parts of Vermont, to minimize nitrogen losses. Okay, probably the most fun part for all farmers is digging into the soil tests and starting to make field by field recommendations using the manure you have on your farm, and then thinking about what fertilizers you might need to input, if any at all, when you're going to do that and at what rate. So you're basically will have a fertility plan for each field. All right. It is lunchtime, but I think I'm just going to get through this last part and then we'll break for lunch. So there is a set of required maps, which some of you I can see are looking at them. They should be in your maps tab. Okay. Now, every time I go through this, somebody screams at me and says, we don't need that map anymore. So I'm looking at Lauren to tell me that I'm wrong. But the more maps, the merrier, right? They're beautiful, they're colorful, different views of your farm. All right, so you need to have a watershed and proximity map. The watershed map basically tells you what watershed you're in, and it hopefully will also tell you if it's an impaired watershed. Actually, hopefully it tells you it's not an impaired watershed, but you'll need that information for the plan. So the proximity map kind of shows your farm in relation to the general area. So it's kind of like a 50,000 foot view. So you need to have that map. Oh, then there's the conservation plan map. This is called lots of things. But I would say as a farmer, most people will say, oh yeah, that's like the FSA maps. So it outlines your fields and it provides a track and field number. And those are numbers that are provided through the Farm Service Agency. So that's how your land is identified. And we will use those in the plan. It also should have the acreage. And usually it lists if it's classified as non-highly erodible or highly erodible. So again, many of you have seen this type of map before. Then there's a soils map. And again, this should show your fields outlined. Okay. And it will show the soil type or types in each field. Again, you'll be using this to build your plan. Sometimes they're colorful, sometimes they're not. It may look like this, it may not. Everybody's got their own style when they make their maps. Frequently flooded maps are only for farms that may have ground that's what we call frequently flooded. You know who you are if you have those kinds of fields. Probably not anybody here in this class. Okay, resource concern map outlines the buffers, required buffers on your farm. Also will outline sometimes wells, wetlands, native species, okay. Buffer map, sometimes those are in there, sometimes they're not. Is that right, Lauren? Yeah. They weren't. They are required. Okay. Okay, so this shows any required setbacks and buffers. The farm practice maps, again, may or may not be there. This will outline often, if you've worked with a land treatment planner, what are some of the practices that are recommended for fields, like cover crops, as an example. A field stacking map. So if you're stacking manure or, you know, have a compost pile somewhere, that will be on a map identified where it is. Hopefully it's an approved area. There are some requirements around that. If you're not field stacking, clearly you're not going to have field stacking map. All right. So those are the required maps. They're listed in the binder in the front. So what we want to make sure that you do is make sure you have all the maps and that the land that you're farming and including in your plan is represented on the maps. So if the maps are incorrect, and what I mean by incorrect is, oh, I don't farm this field anymore, or I'm missing this field, okay? Incorrect doesn't mean FSA has this labeled as the wrong acreage. It may indeed be incorrect, but that's actually something you have to take up with the Farm Service Agency. We can't fix that, okay? It's important to look at that buffer map. Make sure the buffers are, I don't want to say realistic, you're required to have them if there's surface water or ditches, but sometimes a ditch may not exist, or I've seen all kinds of crazy things, but you know, sometimes it doesn't make any sense. So just check in with the person that made the map, because people will look at those if they come out and inspect, and they'll want to see buffers where they're labeled to be. Okay, so just make sure the maps are correct and you have the land identified that you're including in the NMP. And if you need any changes, talk to the folks that you worked with that made the maps. All right. All right. Let's see. I have up on the screen the soil fact sheets. Now, these used to be printed copies of these soil fact sheets that I'm showing you right now. Used to be a requirement of the NMP that you had to have those in the binder. And these fact sheets are a description, a very detailed description of each soil type that's on your farm. So for some people, they'd have like 110 little fact sheets, because we tend to have, you know, complex soils, and they tend to be pretty variable on a farm. As far as I know, they are not required to be in the plan at this point, but someone could tell me otherwise. We do use information from the fact sheets, but you will be provided that information that you need from the planner that you've worked with, okay? In the old days, you had to get these fact sheets out and find the information and put it in GoCrop. We've made that easier at this point. All right. And we will stop with that, because is lunch everywhere, Susan? Maybe we should ask that first. Isn't that all of them? Oh, sorry, farmers in the farmer's kitchen. If you don't have lunch, make your own. Okay, so we're gonna grab some lunch, and then we're gonna come back and get into GoCrop. So the next thing I want to talk about, I'll try to keep this short, is T. What is T? It's not just a letter in the alphabet, but it is what we call in nutrient management and conservation, the tolerable soil loss. And so this is one of those pieces that we would have looked at a soil fact sheet to figure out what the tolerable soil loss is for the different soil types on your farm. So in the state of Vermont, your management on your fields has to meet T. Okay, so again, each soil type, so this one is a Munson silt loam with 3 to 8% slopes. This is common in Franklin County. You can see it says Franklin County on the top. Has a tolerable soil loss of 2. So what does that mean? So 2 is 2 tons, not pounds, not grams, 2 tons of soil loss per acre per year, which is a lot. I mean, soil weighs a lot, so I don't really know what a ton of soil looks like, but just I feel like that's a lot. So the state says you have to meet T. Whatever you're doing on these fields, you can't lose more than 2 tons of soil per acre per year if you're farming a Munson silt loam. So every soil type has a different T. You know, some of them are 2, 3, 5, 1. Okay. So how do they know this? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But essentially, we want the soils to be able to recover and regenerate faster than the rate of soil loss. So the less soil loss numbers usually mean the soil, I don't want to say it's not as good, all soil's good, but it's agriculturally, it may be shallow, could be rocky, you know, it just isn't going to be able to rebuild as quickly. If you have a soil that says the T level's 5, it's probably a really, really good soil. It's like a deep silt loam. And so you're actually allowed to lose even more soil. Some of the T values are 5. So you are allowed to lose up to 5 tons of soil per acre per year. Okay, so the law again, and we'll hold you to this at least in class, is that each field, okay, must meet the T of whatever soil type is there. And the T comes off of these, you know, here they come off the soil fact sheets, but they're up in the sky. They're in a database, so we can access them other ways. All right. Yes, we're getting to that, Cindy. We're getting to it. Okay. All right, so what affects soil loss on your farm? Yes, right? So how you're there's things you can control, things you can't. And so what we're gonna try to help you do is, you know, control the things you can control and minimize movement of soil. You know, I'm still paying on my farm. Most people are still paying on their farms. When you bought that farm, you bought land. That was probably the most expensive part of it. When you buy land, what is the land composed of? Primarily to the core of the earth, almost. Not really. The soil. That's what you're paying for. So does the bank come to you and like say, you lost 2 tons last year, right? That's X number of dollars. That's our asset and yours. What we gonna do about that? No, but maybe they should, right? I mean, that's how we should value it. We should value it more than that, but I'm paying a mortgage. Most people are, and that's what most of it's going towards. So why in the world would you want to lose it? Okay, so it's in all of our best interests, you know, yours as a farmer, you as a business person, and the environment to keep the soil on the fields. So farming to T is the regulatory requirement, but hopefully we all want to do better than that. You know, we want to have soil losses near 0, not at 2, 3, 4, 5, any of those, but it does happen. Now, so how do we figure that out on your farm? Here's a different example. So you can see this example is 5. So this is a silt loam. It's a deeper soil, and you're allowed to lose more. So how are we figuring out how much soil loss you might be experiencing based on the soil type, the weather, you know, the slope of the land, and management? So this program called RUSLE2, which just means it's the second version of the program, and it's also been revised on top of that. So it's the revised Universal Soil Loss Equation version 2. And it's been in use by NRCS, well, at least 20 years, as long as I've been here, and obviously many more years before that. And it's our way of using modeling to estimate soil loss. So it's not perfect. Nobody's out there catching spoonfuls of soil and measuring them with a scale, but we have to have some way, you know, of determining what is the impact of our management, and if we change that management, can we reduce soil loss even more? Okay. That's what it looks like. Boy, that looks pretty simple, doesn't it? But it'll crash your computer. So we do and can run this. Lauren, you guys are running this for farmers, right? And it's a program, it's a model. You put a bunch of data in it. Hopefully the data is good. You have provided Lauren and others good data to put into the model, because what they want to figure out is, are you meeting T? And if you're not, what can we do a little bit differently to meet T? Most farms, if you're all grass, you meet T. You know, there's nothing really. It doesn't mean you're always doing the best, but usually we don't see a lot of soil loss, usually off from grass fields. Most of the soil loss we see are from fields that get, you know, tilled up, sometimes annually. There's no cover in the winter months. And so cover cropping and things like that, if you are plowing up or tilling up soil, can help reduce T, or help reduce soil loss and help you meet T. So there is an example in your book. This is very grainy and not very clear, but it's in your binder in the risk assessment tab, the last 2 pages. But you should also have your own soil loss calculations. Are they in the same spot? Have you put them in there?
I just haven't yet, but they will be. in that
Okay, all right. So if you don't have your own, you can look at your own if you have them available. Okay, and if you don't, you'll have them soon. So your land treatment planners have worked to calculate soil loss numbers for your farm. Let me get to see if this one's more clear. Okay. So here's an example. It's in your binder. And you can see, I think Cindy already mentioned, on your RUSLE2 printout, it should show the soil type. And it should also show the allowable soil loss. Okay, so you can see here, it says in this field, in tree stand field, the soil type is Munson silt loam, 3 to 8% slopes with soil loss or a T value of 2. So I'm allowed to lose 2 tons. All right. And then you can see there's a bunch of other information, which is all really important. It goes into calculating soil loss from this field. The parts that you have input on are this piece here where it says description. So this particular field has corn silage rotated with grass, legume, hay, 4 years of corn silage with fall plowing, that's the FP, and then 4 years of legume grass harvested 3 times with manure, okay? So that's what this particular farm was doing in that field. So that's the kind of information that the land treatment planners have gotten from you. What are you doing? And let's put that into RUSLE2. So what you can see here is that the soil loss that's predicted is 3.43 tons per acre per year, but we're only allowed 2 by law. So this is not an option. Meh. Okay, we got to do something else. And if you look to the right, it says, my right, erosion by year. Okay, so this is the average for the entire rotation, 3.43. Now, if you look at each year in the rotation, this is over 8 years, and you can see in the corn years, the soil loss numbers are pretty high. They get up to 5. All right, and then in the seed down year, okay, we seed down to forage, it's 5.7. And then it goes down quickly, right? In the hay years, you get below 1. Right? So we're looking at the average. Does the average meet T? No. So what are we going to do? I don't know. We got to come up with something. Okay. So there's a couple of different options. So the next one incorporates, I forget, winter cover crop. Okay. So that brings it down quite a bit. And then the third, but still not enough. The third one incorporates no-till. And then you can see, whoa, that's quite substantial. We get way below 2, which is great. So as a farmer saying, well, I got to meet T, I don't really do any no-till, but I'm just going to check the box there, right? Yeah, everybody's happy, on with the show. Okay, then the inspector comes out and they want to look at your no-till cornfields. You know, you didn't park the plow out in the woods, so everybody knows you're not doing what you said you were gonna do, and you're not meeting T anymore. All right, so the lesson here is you need to meet T, but you need to meet T in a way that you're actually going to be able to do it and accomplish it, right? So don't just say, yep, I'm going to adopt no-till now to meet T. Now, some people do, for sure, but other people don't. So you need to, you know, have a realistic rotation and practices that you're really going to commit to implementing. Now, again, for most of you, if you have grass, you only have one number or two, you know, because what we do with grass fields is, well, maybe you don't do this anymore. I don't know what you do anymore. You just take the worst case scenario, which is still pretty good, you know? So you have one number. It makes your life a lot easier with planning. It's usually still always below 1. And it's not a problem to meet T. Okay, so don't be looking for this long, complex list, because if you're all grass, you probably have one or two numbers. But if you are growing row crops, and rotating and tilling and cover crops, you're going to end up with something that looks like this. Okay, so it's going to break it down by year, but what you have to meet for state requirements is the rotation has to meet T. Not each individual year, but the average. Okay. You will use the individual years in planning, but not to meet the regulatory requirement. Okay, so everybody should have a copy of that or will soon. And what I want you to make sure is that you can meet T. And if you're not, or you don't like what you see on that sheet, like I'm not no-till, I can't do that, or I'm never going to cover crop, even though you probably should, you need to talk to your planner to get a scenario, run something else, keep trying. Okay. All right. So that's it for that. So now we're going to get into your homework. So get back into GoCrop. I'm sure you all remember GoCrop.com, and go to we call this the dashboard. You may still be there from before. And just so you know, your homework's super easy this week. Yeah, it has to be. Yes. Next week, we pile it up. But this week, very easy. All right, so you need to get into GoCrop. Online, people. No-till corn really needs cover crop. Okay. Sorry. I guess.
And that's from
that's-
personal experience.
Well, it depends if it's no-till grain or no-till silage, Cindy.
Mhm. Okay, mine was silage. It failed.
Yes. All right. How's everybody doing? We're in. We're good. Okay. We go to farm. Here we are on the dashboard. The first thing you need to do is go down to this little piece of paper where it says reporting tools and click reporting tools. Okay. On the dashboard, down to the piece of paper, click reporting tools. All right. If you haven't skipped ahead and done all your homework yet, this is what it should look like. Right. So what you need to do now is you need to start your nutrient management plan. So you click up in the right-hand corner, add a new Vermont NMP. And this should pop up. Okay. So your homework right now, we have an hour left, is I want you to fill this out. This is the start of your nutrient management plan. This is actually the very first requirement, is farm information. It's not a hard thing to do. Okay. So the crop year, you can start filling it out, but I'm going to go through it and try to give a little bit of detail about what things mean in case you get confused. Crop year, you're planning for 2023. Okay. The plan date, you can leave it as today's date if you want. Okay. Farm name, number of years you've been farming, the manager, whoever's in charge of the farm, okay? Planner details. So for everybody here, I am your planner. So I am the person that has to sign off on these plans. Now, we used to have my information in there. Is it still in there in the binder? Okay. Maybe you can type it in the chat. Could you type my information in the chat? That way. I'm not gonna put my cell phone number in there.
It is on the template and farm summary.
Oh, good. Okay. So the information is on the behind the farm summary tab. The first sheet is the farm information sheet, and that's what you're populating right now. So my information is in there. Okay. I got to fill this out too to move to the next section. Yeah. Yep.
And then the phone number.
Okay. Now, as you're filling things out, when you get to a part of GoCrop where it says save, you should do that if you filled out to that point. Okay. All right. So I got through this first part. I put in the planner name, my farm name, how long I've been farming, etc. Now I'm going to hit save. Okay. So then I kind of like get bopped out back to the start, but just filling in that first part has started your plan. Okay. So once you fill in that part and hit save, then you can see all these other sections that you need to fill out. Okay. This is your homework. I mean, that's it. To fill all of this out. And I think we can probably get it done during the rest of the class. Okay. So you go into the narrative sections and it asks about your farm and future plans. You know, you don't have to write a book. Some people do. Okay. Typical rotation. Don't say none. It's so annoying. I'll send it back. I'll be like, that's not. Just it. You may not actually have a rotation, but you're growing something on your farm. And maybe we should like rephrase that. But, you know, if you're a grass farmer, then say, you know, we are 100% grass, legume, fields. If you periodically renovate those fields, you can talk about that. If you don't, then just say, you know, it's native pasture and grassland. That's it. If you have, if you're growing corn, you know, and sometimes I do this, sometimes I do that, you may just say, typically, you know, I grow 4 to 5 years of corn silage, followed by seed down for 4 or 5 years. You know, I'm not going to say, well, on that field, you didn't do that. Okay. It's just kind of like, what are you doing? Just typically. Yield
Might include nurse
determination
crop.
method. What's that, Cindy?
You might include nurse crop.
Yep. You might include a nurse crop. Yep. So yield determination method. Do not put, what's the thing I do not like? Wait, there's a few of them. Do not put, I looked at last year's yields. I compare, you know, I keep track of yields. Okay. Right. So we count the number of bales, right? So how are you figuring out what your yields are? Because in here, you're going to have to put in a yield goal, okay, for each field. So if you don't have any idea of what you're producing, which may be true, you can use the information from the soil fact sheets that you don't have, but we can get you that information. You know, you can estimate, etc. But, you know, the state really requires that you prove that whatever you're fertilizing to you're doing, you're making, you're meeting. Okay. So we want you to set realistic goals. Like not, I want to get 40 tons of corn silage. Well, so who doesn't? But the reality of doing that is pretty slim. Okay. So how, if you're not currently, but you want to, how would you figure out your yields? Okay. A lot of people keep track of the number of bales they get off of a field. That's a realistic way. So I keep track of the number of loads or the number of bales. I know roughly what a bale weighs or a load of forage is. Or I use the soil fact sheet information. But don't put from historical yields. Okay. How'd you get those? So, and that's what Lauren already knows this. I'll come back and say, so how'd they get the historical yields? Okay. So you gotta put, how are you going to measure those? All right. And then it asks you about manure. What, if you have manure on your farm, what does the manure management look like? You have a pit, you have a stack, you have a bedded pack. You know, we spread in the spring and the summer, whatever you're doing, we compost. But some of this is so when I go in and review it, or somebody comes out and inspects you, we start to get a sense of what the farm is like. Okay. Tillage, again, if you're not doing tillage, simply write, we do not do tillage. We are all grass. We are converting to no-till corn, but when we do till, we do this kind of thing. Watershed, hopefully that's on the map I was talking about. Your watershed hydrologic code and if it's impaired. And then you put in your land. How many acres are owned, rented, tillable, permanent hayland, permanent pasture, woodland. You don't have to put in woodland, but you can. Okay, and then if you have livestock, you need to put in inventory of the livestock. Okay, how many, what groups, and you can group them however you want. You know, young stock, milkers, dry cows. I mean, you can break it down as little or as much as you want. And for me, part of reviewing the plans, if I see somebody has 80 beef cows and they're producing 3 million gallons of manure, I know something wasn't calculated right, or, you know, so it's important to have that information in there. All right, that's your homework. And if you can get that done before you leave, that's great. Otherwise, you need to do it between now and next week. The other thing is to make sure you have your maps, right? The maps that we talked about. There is a list in here. It's the purple sheet up front. It gives you a list of maps. Make sure they're correct. You have a map which represent each field that's going to be in this plan. And then get your RUSLE2 numbers and make sure that you can meet T. And that's what you got to do. That's it. And then come back next week.